the cartel controls that state, like fully. They're just like killing each other off and no one's doing anything about it. It's constant murders every 30 minutes on the minute. Anyone's being recruited to take out hits for like around $200 USD. Chapitos have made an alliance with CJNG. CJNG have always been masters of absorption. They make these alliances or they put men in. They know that, okay, if we go in and we offer a helping hand, if these guys fail or if it comes down to the wire, this becomes our territory. The goal is to have complete control over the Sinaloa Cartel.
The war for the Sinaloa Cartel is raging, and the Chapitos, led by Chapo Guzman's remaining two sons, are facing extinction. Narco journalist Kat Szulc is the only reporter with the balls to embed herself in the middle of this war zone, and what she witnessed was shocking. But perhaps most interesting is the fact that the CJNG, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, who currently have an alliance with the Chapitos, are poised to take over Culiacán and Sinaloa as soon as the Chapitos capitulate. This is unprecedented in Mexican narco history. Make sure to follow Kat on all socials and her new YouTube channel. She's doing fantastic work. And please hit the like button on this video. It really, really helps us out. All right, you guys, with the inside scoop, as always, it's the great Kat Szulc right here on The Connect with Johnny Mitchell.
Culiacán is stressful right now because I was just there, and it's like I felt like it was worse than when the last time I was there was 2 years ago, or almost 2 years ago, like right after El Mayo was captured.
Right.
And I remember I was like, holy, this is really intense. But honestly, this time it felt heavier, and there was like even more violence because, to be completely honest, it's gone to the point where like the cartel controls that state, like fully, point blank, and like you can feel it. And yesterday, a guy was killed on live stream. An influencer was killed on live stream. Yeah,
I saw that.
And like, who's to say that? I mean, he was obviously, had allegiance to a certain faction, so like they're gonna take him out because that's what all the murders are right now. They're just like killing each other off, and no one's doing anything about it. But
isn't that to you though? To me, that looks like the cartel is losing control because you do have all these senseless retribution killings that don't have anything to do with drug trafficking, right? Like killing that live streamer. He's just like a funny influencer. He's not a criminal. So doesn't that, to me, that says the power of the cartel is breaking down, and that's why there's more chaos.
Okay, so in that sense, yes, right? Like there's that internal war that's going on. And it's like this bid for power. But in the sense of like regular life as a society, like Sinaloa as a state, they control it. Like there is no, when I say that, I mean like authority doesn't control it. Military doesn't. The governor certainly does not. He was just indicted by the US.
Right.
So everything that's going on in that state is going on with either like the permission, so to speak, of the cartel or like with cartel oversight.
Right. Okay. I have so many questions. First of all, let's just talk about Ruben Rocha Moya, I guess he's still the sitting governor.
He's still the
technically governor. Right. So he and a bunch of other high-level politicians from the state of Sinaloa, like I think it was 2 months ago now, were indicted by the US on collusion with specifically Los Chapitos, right? The ones, and he goes way back with the Morena political party and with Chapo himself, like way back to when Chapo was at his height. He basically got ran out of town. They shot up his house. The Contras, the Mayitos, live streamed themselves, shooting up his house in broad daylight in Culiacán. What is the situation with that? Why hasn't he been arrested? How has that affected the Chapitos, because now their political allies are in trouble? Could you go into that?
Yeah, okay. This is like a really deep dive here because it's very complicated. So we have all known that, like, and when I say we, I mean like everyone in Mexico, and particularly anyone who has any knowledge of like narcos, right? It's always been super obvious that Ruben Rocha Moya was, aligned with the Sinaloa Cartel. and profiting off of the Sinaloa Cartel. And like a lot of the political decisions he would make came directly from that nexus to the Sinaloa Cartel. Like he was not this autonomous figure whatsoever. He was essentially a speaking head for the cartel. At the same time, he has also been, like you said, a long-standing standout member of the Morena party, the ruling party of Mexico. And so there had been moments where murmurs of him being, a figurehead for the cartel had really come to light. And the president of Mexico herself would come out and say explicitly, Rocha Moya is not with the cartel, and he is a major figure for the Morena party and like this standout citizen. And so here's the thing. He gets indicted by the US literally for profiting off of drug trafficking with the Sinaloa Cartel, particularly with the Chapitos, who we know have been cooperating now with the United States government, which is also what led to the kidnapping and capture of El Mayo, which started the whole war in Sinaloa, was because Chapitos set him up, okay, with the US. And they're all making plea deals. Family members were allowed to go into the US through San Isidro border crossing. It's like this whole thing where the US is blatantly negotiating with terrorists, as they labeled them 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Now, or a year ago. The thing is, if President Claudia Sheinbaum, she's basically what she's saying is, we need the evidence to extradite him or expel him to the United States. If Claudia Sheinbaum comes out and says, you know what? Yeah, the US proved it to us. Our Mexican authorities say in their investigation that Rocha Moya is a criminal, so to speak. That is a huge hit for her politically, not only for herself, but for the entire party. And this is someone who wants to ensure that Morena continues to rule in Mexico for decades to come. And Morena has been the ruling party for the last decade, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
Her latest election, or her win in this previous election, was like one of the largest landslide wins in Mexican election history. She has like this unwavering support. And it seems as though the Secretary of National Security, Omar Garcia Harfuch, is likely going to run for president and will probably likely win. He's really garnering support. And so for her to come out and say this individual who she defended so wholeheartedly is in fact a criminal with the cartels, the very cartels that are wreaking havoc on the state, it's horrible for her politically, and not just like in soft optics, but actually like how her administration is operating as a whole and who's in that administration.
Right. Yeah, it's fascinating. It's all such a chess match because the US is making plea deals with the Chapitos, but then now they have an indictment against the Chapitos ally, which are the politicians in Sinaloa. So it's all smoke and mirrors. It's all political theater from what I can see. So let's talk about you, because you're literally the only journalist that goes down there at this moment, besides like BBC, guarded
local
people.
Journalists. Like there's really, what's crazy? Like everyone always tells me like, you have balls, whatever. If a lot of the journalists who are there like all the time, if they spoke English and like did the same things that I do, like on podcasts, whatever, in social media, they would blow me out of the water, because they are just like, they have balls of steel, and the shit that they're encountering and day in, day out, absolutely insane. And like, yeah, there's like BBC, CNN go down and do stories, and not to their fault, but I think a lot of the times, like a lot of those stories where they're like going in, I just saw one on YouTube yesterday. I don't remember. I think it was DW. I don't remember. And I'm not trying to like on anyone whatsoever, but I think a lot of them are misled by like fixers and connections that are taking them to like this fentanyl lab or like with this high level Sinaloa cartel narco. And a lot of that is just like really not
Yeah, that's a way for like local people in Culiacán to make money, is to tell like us who are trying to get content, like, hey, I pay me and I'll take you to where you can film.
And it's like some dudes with like, they're just wearing balaclavas and they're actually nobodies. And they just have like, they're like showing you their lab, but it's just like bleach and some cooking flour. Like it's
Yeah,
not.
they're making rice
Yeah.
in the pot.
It's crazy too, because like a lot of my contacts over there that are obviously actually heavily involved in the cartels will actually sometimes they'll send me this stuff, or they'll like reach out to me and they're like, this is like, nobody knows who the fuck this is. Like, this is not
Right.
us. And it's not like a propaganda thing. It's like they just actually find it amusing in a way. Most of these people, especially in Sinaloa right now, who are like high up in it and like very deep in it, they will not meet with me in person, even though we've spent years chatting. We know each other, like there's trust. And it honestly comes down to a safety thing. I wanted to go to one region while I was there this summer that's like a big hotspot. And I don't want to say where it is because there's still like a chance that I might be able to go. Um, and I reached out to some contacts who could definitely grant me access. And one of them was like, you do know that there's like bombs dropping from drones right there right now. So I don't want you to come and then we get blamed because you got knocked out.
Right.
And I was like, but that's how you know that's a real source. That's
Of course
not right. And so sometimes there's a lot of that I encounter, I can't even show it.
Yeah, I mean, but I've just seen from your social media, like you're at the sites of fresh murder scenes, and there's people getting killed every day in the city of Culiacán. So can you talk about that a little bit, and just talk about some of these stories and who is winning in the battle of Culiacán right now for the city, because that's been traditionally controlled by the Chapitos. So yeah, please update us.
So I don't answer that because it can get me killed, especially if I go back to Culiacán.
Okay, fair enough.
I think, yeah. So we're just not even going to get into that. But
and who knows anyways, right? That's all objective.
It is constantly changing too.
Yeah.
One day it could be one group, another day it could be another group. But at the end of the day, no one wins because like it's the city, it's literally hell. Like it's burning the down. And the main difference that I noticed from 2 years ago was that like 2 years ago when I went, there were these like really performative brazen murders where like the city would wake up and there would be 5 people laid out dead, naked, with like either a pizza box or the white hat, depending on which faction they belong to and who's trying to send the message. Whereas now it's almost like they're just doing the work. So like when I was there and you saw on the social media, it was like homicide after homicide after homicide. But they're typically not being left with like messaging anymore, and it's not like this huge show, because right now it's a matter of just like killing everyone off that they possibly can, and sending more internal messages as opposed to like public messages. So one of the first murders that I attended when I got there was at a Walmart parking lot. This guy was murdered, and like as we were driving to the scene, I noticed like all of my sources were posting about this murder. So I immediately clocked that like he was a volteado. He switched. He was with the Chapitos faction and he switched to Maitos Flacos faction, which is why he was killed. And they like a lot of people were boasting about it on social media. And so that's also like a worrisome situation when we're going to that, because it's not just like, okay, they killed this guy who owed a debt or said something wrong and like they just shot him and he's dead. This is like, we're going to the scene where there are still going to be lookouts looking who comes to the scene, what's going on, who are the investigators, how is this reported? They want to know which journalists are there so that they can watch our reports after to see what kind of that we're saying. So that's like very stressful. But this is kind of the reality now where it's constant murders every 30 minutes on the minute. That's literally how it felt. And it's not, this big showcase. It's just, okay, boom, we killed him, on to the next. Kill him, now kill him. And when I spoke with authorities, like the same notion kept being repeated. They're not there to prevent these killings. They're just there to attend. Like they are at the point, and I guess this is kind of what the US wanted, is they're just letting them kill each other off.
Right. They're just, the military's kind of just there to make sure it doesn't spill into civilian everyday life, I guess, right?
Like even then, that's not even a priority. I think the priority is just like, all right, show face, write the report, pick up the body. Same thing over and over again. You know, there aren't these like checkpoints of, do you have guns in your vehicle? Or like even looking, you know, for like, right, you know, typically like in any place, like in the States or in Canada, someone gets murdered. There's like this manhunt, like who killed this guy? Like we're searching for these plates and this guy that with this description. That's not happening at all. Like they're not even taking statements from people who were around during the crime.
Yeah. So like the majority of these homicides go unsolved.
Yeah, and there doesn't even seem to be incentive to solve them because it's so much bigger than just the sicario.
Right.
You know?
Of course.
So
yeah, okay. So in that sense, it's business as usual in Mexico, because I don't know, like I was down in Mexico City for the World Cup. Like Mexico's image culturally, like putting aside the narco shit, culturally, Mexico's like winning right now. You know, like they're helping out Cuba, like this awful blockade we're doing to the Cubans. They're speaking out against what's going on in Gaza, although they're buying a ton of weapons from the Israelis. That's a dirty little secret. But in general,
not secret.
Well, right. I know it's something that they try not to talk about, though. Sheinbaum tries not to talk about, right? And it's but culturally, they're kind of the darling of the West, while the United States is like the bad guy, and there's a lot of merit to that. But Sinaloa is so yeah. So part of me, I'm down there, and I'm like, Mexico really is like turning a corner for the better, you know.
To be fair, I feel like Mexico has always been this like cultural hero because it has such a vibrant culture. Like I talk about this all the time. Also because I feel like sometimes I have to say this because people are like, she's like a racist who just wants to show the bad side. Incorrect. Like if you have any critical thinking skills, that's like very obviously not true. But like the World Cup here was so insane and like people were living their best lives. Like actually it was unlike anything I've ever seen in Mexico City, and it was super cool and very safe, I must say.
Yeah.
But then it's like that dark underbelly, right? Of like the crime that's going on. And also to be like right before the World Cup, everyone was asking me like, oh my God, are we gonna be safe going down there? Are you gonna I'm like, this is probably the safest time in Mexico because there's going to be so much money from tourists and people going to the World Cup that like cartels are going to make a bank, like, and every business is going to make bank. So that's always been this like unspoken agreement. Just like don't with the tourists because they make us money, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, but that's why Mexico is so fascinating to report on, is because on the one hand, you have this extremely modern, developed country, you know, and you have Guadalajara, Mexico City, Monterrey, but then when you go to Sinaloa, it still is like the 1970s. I mean, that's what it sounds like. I haven't been there in a while.
Honestly, like going from Mexico City to Culiacán back to Mexico City, it's like going to two different freaking planets.
Totally. So that hasn't changed, like in terms of the cartel stranglehold on the region and on the city of Culiacán. There's still lookouts everywhere, information everywhere. Probably. Do you think there's police corruption still? Like, do you think the cops are playing
blatant? Yes.
Right.
Entirely. That's
are innocent people, we saw that streamer yesterday. We were just talking about get shot to death on streaming. Are innocent people targets?
I wouldn't group him in with like innocent civilians because he was very active on social media about his sort of allegiance with Maito Flaco's faction of the Sinaloa Cartel. He was even wearing the white hat which in Culiacán, you just do not wear that because and I know that that can sound very pathetic because it's like, really, like, of all things, but that is what people are using to show their allegiance. So you just don't do that. But innocent people are typically, like, in terms of actually being murdered, innocent people are kept out of it. But when I went to that Walmart shootout where that man was killed, a 25-year-old girl was shot 3 times. She survived, but she was like an innocent bystander. She got caught in the crossfire.
Right.
So that's of course happening, but innocent people aren't the targets.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So what are they fighting for? What is the goal? The goal is to take over the drug spots in Culiacan, to take over the fentanyl cooks. Like, what is economically the strategic goal of all of this killing in Culiacan?
The goal is to have complete control over the Sinaloa Cartel. So either the Chapitos win and they kill everyone or end the Maitos faction, or vice versa. MF kills the Chapitos, weakens them, and kills their faction, and they have complete control. And like, obviously there is like this their desperation because Chapitos have made an alliance. It's like a year old now with CJNG for like increased manpower, weapons, resources, all of it. And then MF is also going hard. So there's basically, they're vying for control. Because they both feel betrayed at this point.
Right.
And so because El Chapo and El Mayo had this alliance, they were in a partnership for a very long time. But as soon as El Mayo ended up on that small aircraft in the United States and was taken into custody, all hell broke out, because it is said that El Chapo sons, the Chapitos, set El Mayo up, right? And one of his sons was with him on that plane, gave himself up to authorities. And they were actually supposedly on their way to a meeting with Rocha Moya.
Right.
What governor is like taking a meeting with heads of cartel and then saying he's innocent?
Right.
So yeah, that was like the ultimate betrayal, which is what sparked the war.
So you don't see this war ending as like, okay, now we have 2 cartels in Sinaloa. We have the MF, the Maito Flacos, and the Chapitos. You think it's got to be decapitation, and one group has to regain total control in order for there to be more peace? Is that kind of it?
I really don't see that with them both existing and vying for power that there will be peace. Like, I don't think they will come to this like agreement. It's too far gone. So it will unfortunately have to just like end up with someone having complete control. But this is like a war with no end in sight, because I don't think anyone will, like, I just don't see this happening where like someone will, throw in the towel.
Right. It's not that organized. It's not like, trying to come up with an MOU with Iran. Like it doesn't really work like that. Now, speaking of the CJNG and their alliance with the Chapitos, what has Mencho's death done to that?
This is a great question because, I think that the whole point of applying the Kingpin strategy with CJNG was to engage exactly what happened in Sinaloa, except that didn't happen. CJNG did not fracture internally. I mean, I have been told, and I have not been able to report on it yet because some confirmation, whatever, that there have been some kind of disputes with some high-level people in CJNG, some disagreements, but certainly nothing that has led to like this fracture of CJNG. It was like he died. 24 hours later, we all knew that 03, El Mencho's stepson, was now the leader of CJNG, and it just like kept going business as usual. However, what I do know is that when El Mencho was killed, all of the CJNG reinforcements that were sent to Sinaloa to back up the Chapitos faction, they all retreated. And they all went back to Michoacán into Jalisco. And then time went on and that kind of the flow continued and it was business as usual. So it seems for the most part, it's business as usual. However, like that could obviously change at any point in time, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, CJNG is fighting against Mexican authorities and military. Like they're maintaining their stronghold. They seem to still be strong with a lot of like their smaller alliances across Mexico and like certain territories that they've sort of absorbed in a way. But yeah, I don't think the entire goal of the Kingpin strategy was fulfilled with CJNG, which like from a human perspective is good because you do not want a fractured CJNG that will literally be war across the entire country.
Yeah, Ed Calderon thinks that it's possible down the line because the CJNG is so strong and so militarized and so well funded and so disciplined, it could almost turn into like a guerrilla army, the way that, you know, the FARC in Colombia for years was fighting against the government, like with a political ideology.
It's possible. Yeah.
So Cero Tres is the new guy.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's crazy.
Which is like basically a resurgence of the Milenio Cartel, right? Because he's a Valencia. And so like at this point, I mean, CJNG was essentially always backed by like Valencias and, you know, it came from kind of the Milenio Cartel in a sense. But now this is just Milenio Cartel 2.0.
So for people who don't know, the Milenio Cartel was the predecessor to the Jalisco Cartel. It was who...
It was one of the first cartels in Mexico, and it started with the Valencia family. They were from Michoacán. They were agriculture exporters. And then obviously, because they already had the roots, they transitioned into cocaine with all the Colombian cartels and started making a shit ton of money that way. And in fact, a lot of those like original Valencia women have been in charge for money laundering for CJNG.
Right. And Mencho worked security for the bosses in that cartel while I think he was just getting out of the Jalisco State Police, where he was flipping all these cops and absorbing them into the cartel. And so this guy Cero Tres, who famously, if you follow the internet, he was born in California. He's from Orange County, but he's connected to the family, the Valencias. He's by blood.
Yeah, he's Rosalinda's son with El Mencho. Or sorry, not with El Mencho. El Mencho is the stepfather. But Rosalinda Valencia, you know, she's one of the OGs of what Milenio is, of what the Valencia family. They're like the Kennedys of Mexico is the best way to put it.
That's crazy. Now, do you think he's in Mexico, Cero Tres, or do you think he's hiding abroad?
I think he would have to be in Mexico, especially at least since February, for sure. Yeah. But it's also important to keep in mind that most of the high ups within CJNG, which differs from a lot of other cartels, they have their own loyal followings, right? So like if El Sapo, for example, wanted to like branch off and kind of start his own cartel, he has that loyal manpower to, in a sense, do it. But I think that they know, and because there's been so much money flow in CJNG, they know that staying united is what keeps the money coming. And that organization helps them.
Definitely. So turning back to Sinaloa, where you were, did you go out into the countryside at all?
Yeah, a little bit. It was like very obvious that, you know, doing that right now was like obviously not the best idea.
Why? What happened?
It's just cartel everywhere, and it's just lookouts everywhere. Like they clock you no matter where you go, and especially because like you have to get out of the car and film and stuff, and then you're immediately clocked. And I like right before Sinaloa, I had an assignment where it went wrong, and we got clocked by like the wrong people. They tried to run me off the highway, and they pointed a gun at us, and I was like, my life, like I don't want this to happen again. But when you're kind of like going off the beaten path, I mean, even on the beaten path, it's not ideal, but off the beaten path, you are like so exposed. And it's very obvious like who controls a lot of the pueblos outside of Culiacan. And there's a lot of violence, and there is just like really a lack of law enforcement. It's that's why when I tell you like, oh, who controls the state, like it's the cartel, because you're not driving by like police and military. You're driving by lookouts and sicarios and
Did you see any convoys?
of what? Of cartel?
Sicario convoys, yeah, you know, like
Of
back of
course.
the back of the truck or in big, you know, trocas blindados, right?
Yeah, it's like
Armor vehicles.
yeah, when you see like the guys that could be mistaken for military, but they're wearing like Nike Air Max, you're like, yeah, okay.
Oh my God. And they're in broad daylight. They're still caravanning. Like
They do not give a shit. And like when I went to El Mencho's house, or like the cabins in Jalisco, that's all I saw were those convoys. And then when they're driving behind you on a windy one-way mountainous highway, you're like, please just pass me. Like just
right. Dude,
go around.
whenever you see the kids with the hats pulled low, you're like, stay the away from them, dude.
And a long arm rifle, and you're, oh my God, because like also those guys are trigger happy, a lot of them. So I'm just like, please go around, like everyone cameras down, and like, and dude, like I'm with some, you know, with a shooting team. Stop looking through the side mirrors. Like you do not need to be looking at these people. We do not need to have them see us clock them. Just act like it's business as usual, because I don't want to make anyone paranoid, you know?
Right.
So, but that's also why I drive everywhere, because oh, this bitch driving, like obviously it's fine, right? Like if there were if they were serious, like they'd make a man drive. So like me driving, it looks so unserious.
For sure. For sure. At least they know about content. At least they know that this is a thing gringos do, is they come trying to get content because the world's fascinated by it. So it's not like it is a little more, you're not going to have a lot of mistakes, I don't think. Because, you know, I've hung around with some of these guys, and even though their soul has been kind of depleted from having to kill, a lot of them are really nice guys, and they just don't know any different.
Well, yeah, I always tell people that. I'm like, you know, they're obviously, there's like a level of like sociopaths and just like people who you become so jaded that you can't feel or see humanity. But at the end of the day, it's still a person. Like they still have like certain music that they like, and like that's why people are like, how do you talk to these people? And it's like, it's really no different than like talking to anyone else. I mean, how many sociopaths do you think that you encounter on a daily basis without even knowing, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Coming from show business, trust me, there's more sociopaths in Hollywood. But yeah, I don't think these kids are sociopaths. I think they're like child soldiers in Africa. It's almost the same shit, dude. If when you come up like that, I mean, I think some of the bosses are sociopaths for sure, but I think the kids they have a rifle in their hands by the time they're 12, 13, 14 years old. They kill somebody by the time they're 16. They're snorting coke to try to forget it. And so by the time they're 22, 23, it looks like a sociopath, but it's really just a person who's been brainwashed and broken.
Business as usual. And they've been witnessing this violence their whole lives. So it's super normalized.
Super.
Like, if I had kids and brought them up in Culiacán, I don't think they would give a shit about death or murders. You know, obviously, like I'm being dramatic with that, but it's the way you're processing it is very different than someone who has never, you know, you're not walking to school and seeing just murdered bodies on your route.
Right. Now, how old are most of these people getting killed in the cities?
All ages.
Okay.
All ages. Young and old.
Any women getting killed?
I didn't see any when I was there. There are women getting killed, but it is few and far in between. There's, you know, some sicarias that get murdered. And then, of course, like there was that very famous case of Valeria Marquez, the TikToker who was murdered on live stream last year.
Yeah.
And Mexico just announced that like who they think the suspect is. Right.
But that's with Jalisco. It seems like Jalisco's more ruthless when it comes to murdering like and women because they have more diversity. It seems like in Sinaloa, it's old school. Like I'm sure there are some sicarias, but it's mostly men. You know what I mean?
And it's also because if you keep in mind and you consider who the cartel bosses were of Sinaloa, like it was very much an old school style. And even right now, like there's a lot of rhetoric about how like El Mayo was like the last old school kingpin because of the way he was very under the radar and the way he operated business. So that could be a part of it, but it is predominantly men.
Okay, so are they making any money? They got to be hurting for cash because, you know, people are constantly getting killed. They have to bring up new manpower. It's incredibly expensive to run a cartel, even in peacetime. So in wartime, it's like, you know, I mean, the overhead's got to be millions of dollars a month. Tell us, did you see any fentanyl labs? Did you see any meth labs? Like, what are they focusing their efforts on the business side? Have they diversified at all?
I think right now, in terms of business, it's booming for cocaine. I mean, US and Canada are completely losing the war on cocaine because so much effort has been diverted into stopping fentanyl, which means cocaine is coming in at like really like unprecedented rates. And I was actually just told by a source the other day that Canada is stopping massive shipments of cocaine and not putting out press releases and like not telling the public, which is really interesting because typically that's like big win type of thing, right? But I think because of how much cocaine is coming in and how profitable cocaine has always been and still is, that they don't want to make it seem like there's a loss, like in both Canada and the US. Right now, though, in terms of like Sinaloa Cartel, a lot of resources are going into this war. And I think like obviously that alliance between Chapitos and CJNG, like it speaks for itself. I'm also under the impression that, you know, the cartel as a whole, the Sinaloa Cartel, is in terms of sicarios, they're really hiring like anyone at this point. And when I say like hiring, I don't mean like, you know, they're not like putting in a resume and shit. It's just like anyone's being recruited to take out hits for like around $200 USD. So yeah, it's like 5,000 pesos. So obviously when you have anyone working for you or like taking out these hits, that becomes very dangerous because this is someone who's like not experienced. Also, like a lot of the sicarios, I'm told that a lot of the sicarios are even like not doing it for money. They're doing it for a fix. So like they're just being supplied with drugs or like they're like paying off their debt. They're taking out hits.
I believe it. I totally believe it. So it seems like, you know, the CJNG is expanding all over the place still. They're still trying to fight and gain territory in Michoacan. They're as far east as Veracruz, right? They're in Mexico City trying to take, you know, Tepito, that neighborhood, which you and I should go film in, by the way. I got some contacts. I'll holler at you after the podcast. But it seems like Sinaloa, like, are they trying to take more territory or are they just all just fighting for their state?
They're but fighting for their state. And like the territories within the state are kind of like constantly changing. Like one day I'm told so-and-so controls this area. And then like 2 days later, nope, it's switched. And like, that's just status quo across the entire state. Yeah.
Okay. Now the Ivan Archivaldo and his brother, the ones who are still, what's his name?
Jesus Alfredo.
Right. Do you hear anything from your contacts about, you know, their involvement? Like, you know, they're super low right now. Like, I'm assuming they're hiding out in the mountains, and not popping their heads out. What's up with them? Like, are they going to surrender?
That's what I think.
You think they're going to surrender? They must, right? Like,
I think they're probably already like that. Those talks are probably already happening. 100, and they will go together. If Ivan goes, Jesus will go. So
and you're talking about with the DEA turning themselves into the Americans.
To the Americans, yeah. I have a feeling that they will surrender to the Americans. It could be like a Ryan wedding situation again. But who knows? I mean, it all comes down to like what the US feels like they're valuable for, like whatever information. And if they can, supply that and then give themselves up. It's beyond me how they have been able to evade capture. Like El Mencho got captured and killed before them. Blows my mind.
Well, that's why I think it's because Mencho was out in the open and he got caught up in the politics of trying to clean Mexico up before the World Cup. And I feel like Mexico needed a good PR. They needed a good headline. I think that was part of it. And then he was betrayed.
Have you seen a photo of El Mencho dead?
No, I haven't.
Exactly.
Is he not dead? Is he alive?
No, I don't know. I always bring that up because there's like a part, it's so crazy because when you, this is going to sound weird, but when you report on someone for so long and you are trying to learn about every inner working of their life and their business in a way, it's like this weird parasocial relationship. Okay. And I'm not that bitch. Like, I don't give a fuck about Taylor Swift. I don't give a like, that's not me. Right. And I always was like, I would kill to get, not literally, but I would love to get an interview with Mencho or like as close as possible. And so when the news broke that he was killed in a capture operation, I was like, what the f-? Because there's no point in killing Mencho. Like the whole point would be to get him. And like he had probably more information than anybody, especially when it came to the Mexican government.
No, he was the Epstein. He was the Mexican Epstein. He had dirt on all these.
Yes, actually. And
so then that makes sense why they would kill him, in my opinion. No,
I was gonna say, like, who carried out the operation? The Mexicans. But and like obviously then it, this becomes very nuanced in a way of like how bilateral operations work between US and Mexico in terms of like kingpin stuff and the war on drugs. This is like so murky. But the fact that he was killed is like, and like I was like, what the hell? Really? And so, but anyways, the fact that he was killed and captured, and I don't think it had anything to do with him being out in the open or the World Cup or anything like that. I think whatever it was is like so beyond any individual's comprehension who reads about this a lot. There's a lot of things that I could get into, but it's just really the only people that know what really happened there is probably El Mencho and the National Guard.
Yeah.
Maybe not even.
I mean, I think it's safe to say that he was killed because he knew too much. And in my opinion, if we're just going to take it at somewhat face value, the Americans were putting a ton of pressure on the Mexican government. And I think the generals who control the country, the generals are the ones who really benefit the most from the relationship with the cartel. I think they had to shut him up. If we can just accept that for a minute.
No, I agree. Mexico needed a win because there's been so much pressure from the US. And I honestly think because the US has been giving Mexico a list, right, of people that they want gone for like since January of last year. Mexico wasn't fulfilling this list every month. And so they just needed like a one and done, give us some grace type of thing.
Right. So seeing that, and then you look at the two sons, Chapo's sons, the only ones left running the cartel. You're like, what value? Everybody's gone. All the Chapos, literally, all the Guzman Loetas are all that everybody ratted, and Chapo's at ADX. So, like, what could they offer the DEA? What could they offer the DEA that would get them out of like a life sentence? And also tell us what's going on with Ovidio Guzman and Chapo. Does he have any action on maybe turning over some information that he has on the government to try to get out? Just go into all that.
I think Chapo was like, they used him as an example, right? And that allows the US to say, like, we don't negotiate with terrorists while they're still in talks with all of his kids and like other family members, because it's like, it's different, right? Because Chapo was like globally notorious in a way. I think that whatever Ivan and Jesus have to offer, it's certainly political. And that's clearly the direction that we're seeing the US go in, right? They are kind of like, the kingpins are kind of like ran through at this point. What they want is to be able to like tackle Morena and have control of Mexico's inner political workings from within. And the best way to do that is to get this leverage from the very guys who Mexican politicians should not be in collusion with. And so if they have this like hard evidence, which obviously like with Rocha Moya, they did, where it's like, yeah, he was being handed bags of cash. You know, they have something like that all the way high up into the Morena administration. That's their in. Then who's to say that, you know, the US doesn't have their say in who runs for president and shit like that.
Right.
And then every time I feel like it's that same threat of, do you want boots on the ground? Oh, okay. Do this then, you know, because that's like a big thing for Mexico, is to maintain their autonomy as a state, to not allow the US to put boots on the ground in Mexico. And I do, like, for the record, want to say, I don't want to see American boots on the ground in Mexico. I think all hell would break loose. It would be horrible. But I also don't think it would happen. If it were to happen, or if it isn't already, it wouldn't happen in the sense of like an Afghanistan, you know. It wouldn't be like this blatant thing. It would be like what we saw happen in Juarez a few months ago. Oh, 2 CIA agents dressed in Mexican police uniforms died in the car accident. Right. It's that type of boots on the ground. So yeah.
So it's political. So maybe the Chapo kids who are still running the Chapitos, maybe if they can arrest Rocha Moya and his, you know, party of politicians, and they extradite him, maybe they turn themselves in and say, hey, we'll testify against them in U.S. court or something like that.
Totally. Yeah.
I gotcha.
Because
okay.
That's obviously been the MO for like all the Chapitos lately. They were like, the old school, what do you want to know?
Bro, our dad was telling, you know, all his kids were telling. I'm jumping on board, dude.
Just put me up in a nice house in Ohio afterwards. Please.
Right.
New passports.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So do you think, check this out for this theory, if his 2 kids turn themselves in, who's going to run the cartel? Don't you think the CJNG will use that opportunity to move in and literally take Sinaloa? Right.
That's the whole point. Like the alliance, they both had like different incentives. For the Chapitos, it was like, okay, we need the manpower. For CJNG, it was like, all right, we're going to absorb this shit.
They've got to know that. They're too smart.
That's the whole point. And CJNG have always been masters of absorption. They make these alliances, or they put men in. They're super friendly and they're helpful. Okay, I'm using like very casual language to explain, but like
corporate language.
Yeah, they're super friendly and helpful. Yeah. That's like not the case. I mean, in terms of like cartel, right?
Right. No, but they are more. They're as shrewd as they are violent. You're right about that.
Yeah, and they're really good with business in a way.
So good.
So they know that, okay, if we go in and we offer a helping hand, if these guys fail, or if it comes down to the wire, this becomes our territory.
Right.
And I wouldn't be surprised if that were to happen, like looking ahead, right? Mm-hmm. Hypothetically, if CJNG were to absorb Chapitos territory, they would just make an alliance with MF and be like, all right, let's run it together like back in the day. And it would be a fresh start.
That's honestly the ideal situation. Is,
and
you know,
it would be very ideal for people in Sinaloa, because like the war needs to end.
It has
Life
to end.
sucks.
Yeah, I mean, day to day, you can't imagine the kind of stress that causes on normal people.
And their economy is shit. And Sinaloa had such a booming economy because of their culture, their music, Mazatlan, the food, everything, right? Like Sinaloa's culture was a standout in Mexico, still is, right? Like there's so many unique things. Their economy is like non-existent.
It's because businesses are shutting down because nobody wants to go out, that kind of thing. Is there still like a curfew in the city?
Not right now.
Right. But just people just don't go out after a certain time, probably because
everything closes at dark. There's no bars.
Yeah.
Like I posted a YouTube video, spent 48 hours with me in Culiacán, where we're going from like murder to murder to murder. And then we just go back to the hotel bar with like, it's people commented, they're like, are you the only one in there? And there was like 3 people and we're doing karaoke. And that's like the extent of it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It feels like a ghost town.
And like Mazatlan is still very vibrant, but obviously it's like a tourist hotspot. But there's also still like a shit ton of violence happening in Mazatlan.
Because that was Mayo's turf, right?
No.
Or it was back in the day. But what does Mazatlan offer a cartel? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, why is that strategic? Okay.
They have access to the Pacific. So anywhere like Puerto Vallarta, Mazatlan, in Baja California, you have access to the ocean, you have access to the world.
True. Now, what about places like TJ? I don't know if you know anybody or have contacts in Tijuana.
That's my next video because I literally went to TJ right after.
Oh, shit. Okay, talk about TJ. I love TJ, one of my favorite cities because I'm a Californian. So I love anything, it makes me miss home. What is happening in Tijuana? Because that's been notoriously difficult. That's always been contested. It's like you can't control that city. What is going on there now? It's fascinating.
It's so funny when you're like, I love TJ, because anytime I hear a man say that, I'm like, you're nasty. Like,
I've never even been to Hong Kong. I drove by it and Ed was like, do you want to go in and have some lunch? And I looked at it, I was like, not on your life. Not even at my scummiest would I go in there. Because it's
never been to even I've been to Hong Kong.
I've never been to Hong Kong. I know. I'm kind of lame for that, right? But no, I don't like going in because it just feels like I feel like okay, I'm better than these
profile.
Exactly, and I'm better than these. So I have been to Paris del Noche though in Ensenada, and I can't sing that place's praises enough. It's like a turned down version of Hong Kong, very nice, and you don't feel like you're going to get kidnapped and I'll leave. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I went to TJ because I was doing a human trafficking story, like a trafficking story.
Right.
Obviously, like all roads lead to TJ with that type of stuff, especially when you're covering it in Mexico. And so, I mean, TJ is like same shit, right? But while I was there were like 2 murders, I think. I don't remember the exact details of it, but it was something kind of one of them was pretty significant. I ended up going to Tecate because one of the human traffickers I wanted to meet with was like, let's do the interview here. So we go to Tecate, and like I got there very early in the morning, and I was with a local journalist, and he covers like the Nota Roja, like the breaking news. So I ended up accompanying, it was like basically Culiacán 2.0, because we ended up just going to like all the murders all day long. The difference is the murders in Tecate, a lot of them were distractions. So there's like this older man. It was actually very sad. Okay. And I know like all murders are sad, but when I'm in Culiacán and I go to the murders, this is going to sound bad, but you have to understand with the context of my job, you get to a point where you're not internalizing everything, right? You're going to these murders in Culiacán, and then you're getting the context of like, well, this person was involved in this and blah, blah, blah. And it just becomes work. In TJ, some of the people being murdered are just like innocent and they are distractions.
Distraction from what? What do you mean?
distractions from, so this guy, older man, was shot up, dude, 15 rounds, and this like old guy walking home, like pulling like this thing with all his shit on it, and they unload 15 rounds into him. He's dead. So all the police go there. Later that evening, we find out at the same time, huge drug shipment was being moved.
Right.
So
right.
That's what they're doing. Or like
Yeah.
they're crossing a ton of people, or they're crossing a ton of drugs.
Yeah.
So they kill someone, so that all the authorities and all eyes are on that while something
Right.
else is happening, right? What do you call that? Like a false flag?
No, I don't know. I think a false flag is more like 9/11, right? You create a mass event
It's like
in
a
order to
smoke screen, right?
It's a smoke screen,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Exactly.
I'm so bad with idioms.
It's like a throw off method. You know what I mean? They used to do that in the hood in America back in the day. You get a guy to like boom, 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 and then all the cops swoop down. At least the cops come, unlike in Culiacán. At least the cops in TJ. And I think that's because it is a border city and there's more gringos. I don't know why, but
this was in Tecate, but because
which is
but we're right on like those major crossing hotspots, right?
Right.
Most people aren't crossing like illegally, like from TJ.
Right.
So that was problematic.
Okay, so I want to talk I want to talk about the human trafficking, but first let me ask you about something a little lighter. No, this isn't even lighter. This is just as heavy. I've heard that they're kidnapping people, and I want to ask you if this is true because nobody's embedded like you. Are they kidnapping, meaning the organizations, force recruiting people to either be sicarios or be mulas, drug mules?
Yes, but they typically have some leverage. So it's not just like someone's walking down the street and they pick them up. It's like someone who they know like has a debt or is like a potential victim of extortion, or someone who has responded to this fake job offer. So they're kind of like they're being lured in a way. You know, you're not just getting picked up pulled into a white van walking down the street buying cigarros. Like there's a process to it. But yes, that is happening. There is forced recruitment. And when I really became sure of that was when we found out about the Rancho Iseguirre. What was that, like 2 or 3 years ago now? The ranch, 58 kilometers outside of Guadalajara, the extermination ranch.
Right.
A lot of those people were victims of that. And a lot of these people are being sent to like Puerto Vallarta for training. And when I say training, a lot of them are just like, it's like, okay, fight to the death, and who survives makes it to the next level. It's like very gruesome. Yes. Yeah.
So is that kind of shit happening in Baja California too? Or that's more mula. That's more like they need runners. They need people driving over the border, with drugs.
But I wouldn't be surprised. Like this is, I'm not like an expert on like TJ recruitment, but I wouldn't be surprised, obviously, if people in Baja obviously are being recruited and lured. But it's more common throughout like central Mexico.
Right. Yeah, because you got to figure, like, I know they have a lot of kids in Culiacán and in Sinaloa. Like, they're old school Mexican. Like, everybody has like 4 kids by the time they're 22. But like,
I know, wouldn't it be nice?
I don't know. Life's pretty good with no kids, but it's at a certain point they're going to kill everybody off. And I know that sounds real cold, but like, I think that's why they have to draw from like mercenaries from Colombia. They have to fool people. That's why a lot of women are joining.
Yeah, they have to force a lot of people because a lot of people are also more scared now. I noticed that when I was there. There's enhanced fear. Before it was like very normal and people were like, well, yeah, the cartels exist and yeah, this shit's happening, like kind of blasé. But now people seem to be more afraid, which is really sad. Like that really stood out to me because, and I know it doesn't sound like the most jarring thing, but when you see it, when you're living it and you see a society that's just like sad, like scared, it's not a nice thing to witness. It's very jarring.
Yeah.
to see such a large amount of people just living in fear. It was like Ukraine, because I went to Ukraine in January, and it was like everyone's so scared. I mean, in Ukraine, there's also this level of like frustration and like, let's just up the Russians,
Right.
because it's more of like a textbook war. But in Sinaloa, it's like people are just like they're drained. It's not nice to see at all, and like people are living horrific things, and they're just like numb. That's how you get PTSD.
For sure. For sure. And people are afraid to like associate with certain people because they might be from the Contras and
Terrified. Like when I went to the Malverde Chapel, it was because I hadn't been in 2 years, and I love Culiacán, which sucks. Like I really like it, and
it's such a cute little city.
well, it's kind of a shithole, but like it's just nice. Like, you know what? The people there, like some of the best people I know are in Culiacán. Like just such great people, and it just sucks to see that their lives are destroyed. Well, not destroyed, but they're living in shit.
Yeah.
And when I went to Malverde Chapel, I noticed they stopped selling any of like the narco memorabilia, because like when I went 2 years ago, you know, everybody knew you could buy not only Malverde and Santa Muerte stuff, but you could buy like Chapo stuff and all of like the cartel stuff. They don't sell that anymore.
They're too scared. Like we don't want to take sides with anybody.
A lot of bodies and heads were left outside of the chapel. And then I asked the guy who was selling the stuff, I'm like, why don't you guys sell it anymore? And he's like, because of the conflict. We don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not cool anymore. Like
that's the difference. It's not cool anymore.
Yeah. Because back in the day, even 10 years ago, it was a thing that even Mexicans glamorized with corridos and all that. And now that everybody is really living it, they're like, this is terrible. This sucks. This is no way to live. Okay. So talk about, I guess we'll just end it with, on a high note, talk about the trafficking that you witnessed or were embedded around.
Like the lowest note. This is probably,
I know.
I say this every time, but it just seems to get worse and worse. This is the worst thing that I covered. I've been having nightmares about it.
Oh, damn. Sorry. This will be therapy.
I went on Julian's podcast, talked about it, but it was like so fresh that I was like, you know, just like getting into it. And then it like hit me like a train afterwards. A lot of women are being lured from central Mexico, you know, the lover boy method. And then under fake pretenses, they're taken to TJ, Houston, New York, San Diego, where they're literally slaves. Like there's no other way that I can put it. And their lives are being destroyed. And a lot of them are virgins too. Dude, it's horrible. I interviewed one woman who was a victim of this exact textbook method. And she said she had to give service to up to 30 men every night for 10 years.
And that was in Mexico, or that was on the U.S. side?
No, that was in Mexico. So she was working in TJ, and she was from central Mexico, where a lot of these women are from, because they're very innocent. They're growing up in small towns, very religious. You know, they meet this guy, first boyfriend. He woos her. He brings her flowers. Unbeknownst to them, he is a trafficker. And that's not your boyfriend. And he doesn't love you. He loves the money that he could get out of you and your vulnerability.
Right. Okay. So totally brutal. It's like the worst thing you can think about in life. It's literally the worst crime. Right. And okay. But correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think the cartels are directly involved in that, right? So
most of these cases that I was covering and the people that I were talking to, it's family networks. So they are not like the cartel. Obviously, there's like a profit that's going to them in order to operate and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But the people running these operations, they are generations of families who have always done human trafficking.
Think about that evil. And it's just a business to them.
Next level.
It's just a business to them. Like, yeah, I know my grandfather started this prostitution/human trafficking business in the 60s.
Where like, especially in this region that I was in, like the boys are growing up being like, yeah, when I grow up, I'm going to be a trafficker like my dad. I'm going to be a trafficker. I'm going to be a padrote. Padrote. What do you want to be when you grow up? Padrote. to the point where when I interviewed this woman, I was like, she has a son with her trafficker. I said, he's like 8. And I was like, are you worried that he's going to follow the same path? And she was like, I'm going to have to cross that bridge when we get there. I'm like, Jesus.
So it's almost like pimping, like traditional pimping in America, but it's to a whole nother level of kind of brutality and organization.
And trafficking is the same thing. And I had a pimp try to tell me, like, I got indicted on human trafficking charges, but like I was pimping. And it's like, it's the same thing.
We could go down that rabbit hole because I've talked to a lot of like old school Black American pimps where that is not the case.
We can agree to disagree, but to me, it's one and the same.
I mean, it's completely vile morally, no matter how you look at it, and everybody is a victim of this evil. But I do think in Mexico, it's just there's levels to drug dealing and there's levels to drug trafficking for the cartel. I think there's levels to pimping, and then there's levels to this kidnapping, racketeering, abuse. You know what I mean? Like,
for sure.
That's all I'm saying.
I agree.
There's levels to the shit. That's all I'm saying.
But I feel like also after I was doing this story, it changes the way you look at any of this and any of the sex work. And
to answer your question, that's why I don't go to a place like Hong Kong, because I've heard about this stuff and I'm like, even if I was a degenerate, it's like, just know that these are broken women and victims.
Yeah, and just know that, like, you American men watching, if you go to TJ for a weekend, like, that girl likely does not want to be there or was not expecting to ever see her life turn out like that.
Right. And okay, so TJ is obviously and Baja California, the north, that's the hot spot for where these trafficked women go.
Texas.
Right. Like where, like Houston, right?
Yeah.
Houston. So,
these guys that are linked to Central Mexico are directly moving women to Houston.
Okay, and then when they're in Houston, so they're smuggled across the border illegally, right? Like with a pollero or something, correct?
And they're working as prostitutes in Houston.
Like, okay, and so where, like in these little, like, are they like little, mostly Mexican, like what do you call them?
I don't know, and if I'm being completely honest, call me a bad journalist. I didn't dive that deep because I just was worried about my safety.
Okay, fair enough. I'm assuming that it's a lot of like little cantinas where Mexican people go. That's what I'm going to assume, because I've heard before that like in places like LA, they're strip clubs, but they're not legal. They're not legal strip clubs.
That's what I'm told is happening also in Houston. It's like the strip club, but it's actually like a brothel, basically.
Right. And it's usually under the radar, and it's usually like not for sure. So when people get trafficked to TJ, I'm assuming because a place like Hong Kong, because it's so on the map, I'm assuming that kind of thing doesn't go on. Like a trafficked woman is not going to get a job at Hong Kong. Is that correct?
Most of like the girls that I'm talking about are like the girls who are standing outside, like in the lingerie, like they call them las paraditas, like the ones standing.
Right.
Of course, in some of the strip clubs, some of the girls are like kind of lured into that. But then there's just a lot of girls too who just go and like will dance for the weekend to make money. And they're from different parts. But it's not like they're not being like forced to like guys and have to like give all their money up to a pimp.
Right. And so these paraditos, they're the trafficked ones. That market is like lower figure, right? Like that's like cheaper.
Bro, like 300 pesos for full service, like 15 minutes, whatever you want. Let's go. 300 pesos in USD is like what? Like $15, maybe?
That's
the conversion.
No, it probably is a sandwich. Yeah, I think I paid $20 for a sandwich. It's crazy, dude. Oh my God. Okay. So in terms of TJ, like, what is the presence of the cartels and their trafficking activities? Like, does that even happen in TJ anymore, or is it just drug traffickers getting it on?
From what I can tell in TJ, it's like there's like a lot of independence. So it's not like you can't be like, oh, this cartel controls TJ. There's a lot of different and independent things and illegal activity going on.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And there's a lot of drug money in TJ.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Tons of people are buying. So, hey, man, after talking to you, it's like, I got to go out in the sun after this and just take a walk.
Imagine living with my mind day in, day out. It's like it will drive you up the wall.
But do you think this is kind of an addiction that you have to chasing the story?
It never starts out like that, but it does get to that point where there's a level of nothing makes you feel like this.
Wow. So you're like, that was so f***ed up. I got to go back.
I'm traumatized. Let's do it again.
Right. Wow. That's a pretty hopeless cycle unless you can figure out a way to.
That's why I do yoga.
Yeah. You got to, man.
Doesn't do shit.
Yeah. I mean, you're flexible though. That's good. It's probably good for your back.
It's good if I need to run away.
Yeah, no shit. But I see you're out there in these videos at a crime scene in Culiacán in flip-flops.
I know, dude. I've always gotten shit for what I wear. I think it's also because I'm a girl, so people notice what you wear as a woman.
Right.
But I'm always just like, comfort is key. So I wear the same pair of jeans and flip-flops everywhere I go. But it's just a matter of like, this is, yeah.
Yeah, maybe put on some runners.
I do. I do. I switch it up. But sometimes I like to let the dogs breathe. You know, I have a very aggressive athlete's foot. So that needs to be out with the oxygen.
Yeah, fair enough. Holy shit. Well, I want to go back to Culiacán now.
Let me know.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do. Well, I'm really proud of you. I've watched your journey and it's like, I just think the content just keeps getting better and better. The journalism.
Thank you.
So I'm excited to see this new piece that comes out. Excited is a weird word, but you know, it is.
But I am too, because I'm hoping that in some way, because this is also quite underreported, especially how deep I got into it, that it can provoke some level of change, or there is like some organization or something that can maybe, you know, step in and somehow kind of like stop or prevent a level of this, you know, that there's more awareness amongst the women who can fall victim to this. That's always the goal. And I think that with something like this, that could, you know, be a reality. Because otherwise it's just like, what the
For sure. And I think it's really hard to convince people to not do drugs. Like it's hard for them when it's impossible. When somebody buys a bag of Coke in LA, in Hollywood, they're not thinking of like the people that got murdered in Colombia, you know, trying to stir it up and make it. The people that got bombed by the Trump administration as they were trying to move it across the sea. The people who got there forced recruited in Culiacán all the way up, you know, but like the trafficking, that's like something you could tell like, hey guys, I know it's like a funny joke and TJ and I was young once, you know what I mean?
When
and
you really know about it, it's not so funny.
No. So that's what I think is good too, is like you're promoting awareness and I commend you for that. And that's
because once you get that 8 ball, you snort it, you know, what's been done is already done. But when you are paying this woman to like use her body, that's a whole different ball game.
100%. Do you think Mexico, I think Mexico is ascendant, certainly culturally, but do you think that the worst of it is behind the country? And if you think this guy Harfouge, who famously is now like going after cartels, like do you think it's getting better in terms of less corruption, less narco money, more law and order?
I think it's more out in the open, but I don't think it's gotten better.
Okay.
It's just more visible. That's it.
And it's more contained to certain areas, right? Because you do have so many gringos and international people. Like when you go to Los Cabos, you know, like my parents go there, right? And they don't see anything. They love the golf courses and the ocean. It's much more, it's like in America, right? The cities are mostly cleaned up. All the ghettos are now out in like these hidden, unseen little towns. I think Mexico is I think it's kind of like that in Mexico, personally.
Yeah, could be.
So where are you're putting your full length videos on the Ironclad, or where can people find you?
Going on. So I just started my own YouTube channel, so you can see like a ton of behind the scenes stuff.
Oh, great.
And people seem to be really enjoying it because it's like there's really like bare editing and it's like really just like real life of what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I had to show people that because also like I get so much shit for no reason. So my YouTube channel, Katarina Szulc, and then I still have the podcast with Ironclad, Borderland Dispatches. And then I do a lot of like deep dives and hot takes and breaking news and exclusive stuff on my Substack. Also Katarina Szulc. So yeah, that's what's going on.
Great. So for my audience, head over. I want them to hit your new YouTube channel. So go subscribe to her on YouTube and check out all that content that I'm too scared and lazy to make. That's where you come in. You're the best at it. You're killing it. I really, really appreciate it. And then obviously she's all on socials. You're killing it. And yeah, we'll have you back soon. And maybe we'll do like a collab on something down in Mexico. That'd be sick.
Yeah. Me and this DEA looking ass. Not okay.
Yeah, but they know me. They know I'm. They've seen the channels. They know I'm all. They know I'm on their side.
Okay. Thanks for having me.
All right, Katarina. Appreciate you. Katarina Szulc. And we'll see you next time. Peace out.